All right. And we're back with another Pickled Dragon Unscripted with the very talented Dracoya of Scale 75 USA and Avant Art. She's over there. Hopefully, I'm pointing the right direction because you can never tell with these reverse cameras and such. But in any case, so we have I'm part I have I get well, this was a new bottle of Bullet, and as you can
Nice.
see, I've been enjoying it quite a bit. And I'm enjoying it right now. How about you, Decoy? What are you enjoying?
I have a seasonal pumpkin ale, night owl pumpkin ale. Next time we record, I've got some very special beer I want to show off, but it is the middle of the week for me, so I want it to be good.
Is it now? Does it involve a certain fat man as we are entering the days of the fat man with a white
Um,
beard and a red jacket?
no, it is a Christmas special beer that I have, and I'll bring it out next time, but it does not have Santa on it. For anyone who knows me, I am a Grinch. I'm sorry, but I am.
And I am quite the opposite. I am quite the gift giver, and I love giving gifts. I love Christmas. Um, I would bankrupt myself if my wife didn't step in giving gifts. So, but it is that tis the season of the fat man, as I like to say, which is great. Um, so we have a very interesting, alarming, I guess for some of you, if you're like us, alarming topic for you today. And recently we found out that back in March, Wizards of the Coast modified the core material on D&D Beyond. They actually censored a whole slew of words, changed them, changed words based on what their sensitivity sensors
Mm-hmm.
deemed to be problematic.
And there's just so much that Matt and I want to unpack as far as what they've censored. So we've decided to split this up into a few different videos. And this video is going to be covering just a couple of the words that they were removing, not all of them.
Yes, we're gonna look at three words in particular that we feel like. I mean, really, all of it is just is mind blowing to me. But um, we can't share everything. It would be hours of content that you guys would have to consume to catch the breadth of it. But
Yeah, we're
there
not
is
going to do that to you. So
yeah,
we're going to give it to you in small tidbits.
there is a YouTuber named Alpha Stream who compiled all the changes, and he is like an enthusiastic supporter of the sensitivity sensors.
Yep.
We get to see his take on this, and then we're going to kind of respond. Now, to be clear, everyone is entitled to their opinion, including this guy.
Yes.
We we have our opinion, and WotC is entitled to change anything in their IP that they want to. That's fine.
That's true.
But we are free to say, hey, we think this is wrong.
Yes.
So, but before we go on, we're going to give you a moment to relish the greatness that is our sponsor, Thorum, the great Thorum
The
rings.
great Thora.
Yes. So please take a moment, watch the ad, and support our channel.
I'll just take the Thorm ring. Thank you very much.
Oh, like hell you will. You can have this. Take the Venom dagger. I'll take the Thorn ring.
Venom dagger. What am I? Well, actually, that could be useful. No, wait, I'm taking the Thorm ring.
Over my dead body. I can't believe
Oh,
you would even
over your
think
dead body. That
you would
can
get
be
the Thorn
arranged. I'm
ring.
going to take
It's
this
my
dagger and I'm
ring,
going to
not
shove it up
yours.
your.
My ring.
Whether you are looking for truly unique rings to exchange on your wedding day, or simply a statement piece for Renaissance fair or cosplay, look no further than Thorum. Rings fit for the gods. Use promo code PICKLED for 20% off your order. Thank you.
Thank you. We're back. Yes. Forum, you're great. We love you. So, but really, before we go on, I think it's really best not to try to put words into Alpha Stream's mouth. We're just gonna share a clip of what he has to say on this topic. So here we go.
And I make a point here that this has been in place for months, right? This is not something that just happened, and shock and alarm can be expected in the industry. In fact, anybody looking at the core books on D&D Beyond, you've been looking at these changes for months, right? Since at least March, depending on which of the two platforms you use, but it's several months. There's been, I don't think anyone has noticed, right? It's the reality of this. Maybe a few people have noticed a thing or two. And that makes sense to me because a lot of these changes are subtle things. They're not like super obvious, like, oh yeah, that they're, the books were telling us to murder our families. No, they weren't doing anything that wild. But just like problems can be subtle, solutions can be subtle too. And these changes are important even if they're subtle and even if they don't get noticed all the time.
So.
Yes. So he says that these changes are important.
But are they?
Yeah, but are they? Now, you guys will be able to judge for yourself when we actually get into some of the changes.
Yeah.
But I play this clip because there's a few things he said there that I think we want to look at, because he says, well, obviously these aren't mind-blowing or catastrophic changes because no one complained, right? No one made a fuss about it. Well, how many people do scour D&D Beyond for changes? They work from their DMGs or players' handbooks that they have physical copies of.
My group always had the books. I've got the books behind me all the time. We just have the books, and anyone I know that has a PDF, they already have their PDF pulled up. They don't usually have the internet site pulled up.
Yeah, and so, he also says that the problems can be subtle, and I have a problem with that, because if the problems are so subtle that you have to hyper analyze the meaning of words and the connotations of words, you're really searching for issues at the point, and it becomes kind of a self-fulfilling problem, right? Oh, yeah. I found a problem with this word because 200 years ago it was used in this context, and immediately what comes to my mind is, who is demanding these changes? Like,
yeah, who is upset about this stuff? I don't get it. I've never heard anyone ever be upset about this stuff, but I guess they must have gotten one letter from somebody somewhere.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, and you and I, we tend to try to stay up in the comings and goings of tabletop RPGs.
We do.
I've never heard of there being issues with particular words that were used, not only in these core books, but core books since the beginning of the game, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But it actually gets more insidious than that. And I think, Jacoya, what do you?
Well, I think it's kind of terrifying, and it's a very slippery slope of sensitivity censors.
Ooh, yeah, say that 10 times real fast.
Slippery slope of sensitivity censor. I can't do that, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's a slippery slope, because if these words start to go out, then when's it going to stop? I mean, when's the boundary? When is enough actually going to be enough? And he actually talks about that. He talks about the field of sensitivity. He brings up that subject. So we have a small clip of that.
Yeah.
It's important to note that this is all in transition, meaning that what you see today may not be what Wizards uses in the 2024 books. The field of sensitivity and inclusivity changes and evolves over time. So we will see certainly over time changes to these. You can't take this as a guide that's static. This is something that evolves. But
okay, so yeah, again, he's saying that it changes over time, and what words are allowed this year will probably be banned next year. And this is just the beginning. So basically, if we're okay with these changes, great. But if you're not, then be prepared that this is just the beginning and it's going to get a lot worse. We have looked at his videos, and we've learned that WotC has come up with a large variety of words that we are no longer allowed to say, but we're not going to bore you and have a 40-hour video. So we just decided we're going to focus on 3 for now. So we have 3 words that we're going to talk about, and let's hear the clip where he brings up the topic about the word savagery and civilization, and he'll give us an overview as to why he thinks they are a problem.
Yeah. All right, let's do this thing.
so the first topic here that I've grouped is issues of savagery and civilization. And this can be something that ties into larger topics like decolonization of games, which seeks to address how in both fiction and nonfiction writing, we often portray the non-Western cultures, the non-urban areas as lesser, right? The cities are evolved and intelligent and progressive when they're just murdering people in different ways, right? And there are good and bad to everything, regardless of where you live, where you grew up. So trying to address that language of how we discuss what is civilization, what is savagery, is often done by removing the words like savage that are made to describe things. And none of this is about removing your fun, right? So I like playing barbarians. I like DMing barbarians. I like exploring the wilderness. I like going to small villages. But the language we use can make that experience really cool without any of the harmful part of it. And so a lot of it is, this isn't about removing things from the game. It's about painting with a different brush, if you will.
Yeah, I don't understand how it's painting with a different brush myself. And side note to anybody, if you hear a bunch of squeaking in the background, I do apologize. That is my puppy. He has learned that he likes the squeakers in his toys. So I apologize.
As he should.
Talking about savage, he likes the squeakers because they remind him of dying animals. For
Yes,
anyone
that's
who
good.
has a dog that doesn't know that, there's your tidbit of savagery for you.
Yes.
So anyway, back to our topic. He talks about decolonization, and is his squeaking being way too much?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool. So he talks about decolonization, and it's a buzzword that implies non-Western cultures are inferior to Western cultures. I don't know about you, feel free to give me your opinion, but I think that's ridiculous. I think in today's world especially, there's a massive love for non-Western cultures. I can't tell you how many of my friends are just dying to go to Japan. Or, you talk about Squid Game. Some of the most amazing cinema I have ever seen has come out of Korea. It is beautiful. And in RPGs, we're the exact same way. I mean, most of my groups and most people I've spoken to, they have such a love for non-Western cultures and non-Western civilizations, because they are a civilization. Who doesn't love samurais and going through feudal Japan? It's beautiful. So that's what I definitely want to say to that.
And it's funny because I have heard a lot of criticism of TSR, the original creators of Dungeons and Dragons, TSR, Gary Gygax. I've heard a lot of scathing critiques of them for building a Eurocentric RPG. And then when they did delve into other cultures, Oriental adventures, it was, well, they've taken a bunch of Asian cultures and melded them together. to create
Yeah.
this homogenized source book. And you know, to that I say it's also true of the core books. You know, the barbarian was part Viking and part Germanic warrior and part Celt, and you know, like all these different cultures wrapped up into the barbarian. And
Right.
you could say that of the druid and of the original classes. It's just that was the Eurocentric side. So
It doesn't count.
yeah.
But I mean, that they were just doing what every great writer does, which is pull on what they know. That's what they were doing. They were taking the things that they know and the things that they love and creating something out of it. That's what all great artists do.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, they were a bunch of dudes, you know, from Wisconsin who were creating a role-playing game, you know.
Yeah.
And they did what they did. And as a side note, you know, with Oriental Adventures, I've heard a lot of critique. Like, it seems that Asian folks, and this is my experience, just people I've talked to, but Asian folks in the West have a bigger problem with it than the Asian folks who are still in the East.
Right.
You know, if you look at the Oriental Adventures book, the play testers for that book were all Japanese. And you know, I know that gets brushed aside, but I mean their input counted for something, you know. And
so I think the question that we have, I mean, this is what civilization means to us, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't mean urban and city centers in today's mindset. Or, you know, what do you think about the word civilization?
yeah, you know, and we're going to talk more about civilization in a minute, like the word civilization. But you're right, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean civilization doesn't necessarily mean a difference between urban and rural. But again, we'll get into that in a minute. So you know, let's actually just get into our first word. The word savage is a word that that they've removed from the player's handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and so forth. And we have a video where he discusses that. So let me bring that up for you guys. Here we go.
Everything you see, the text that's in yellow, the line that's in yellow is the original line. The line that's in green is the new line, the revision of the text. And in red is what was removed, and green is what was added. So we can see in the Dungeon Master's Guide, they say where they confront savage giants, ferocious hydras, etc., and they change that word savage to brutal, right? Or in another example, they change savage raiders to merciless raiders. And so what we can see here is this thought process of removing that descriptor and using a descriptor that's more accurate for what we're trying to say, right? Well, what are we trying to say by savage? Well, savage has a lot of connotations that we're actually not trying to say. So let's go to what we're really trying to say, right? They are brutal, they're merciless, they're ruthless. And if you're a creator, whether you publish or for your own home creation, this is something you can kind of put in your to-do list, right? Like, hey, when I'm going to talk about how these things are, and I might have used the word savage, I can instead think of brutal, merciless, ruthless, right? Things like that.
So he says, what we really mean to say are these other words that we're replacing savage with. No, I think the authors really meant to say savage, and now, because of whatever pressures, they're going back and they're changing them. Yeah. So what is the issue with the word savage, Jacoya?
Well, I mean, I know that they're claiming, they haven't said this, but I would assume that they're probably claiming it's offensive to Indigenous people and Native Americans, which I can understand that aspect. However, with the way this book is written, that's not really talking about a certain group of people. It's using it in a term to describe brutality,
Actions.
severity,
Yes.
action. It's it's supposed to be gory. It's supposed to be terrifying. It's not to describe a particular group of real people as lesser than.
And let's face it, how long has it been? How many decades has it been since Savage has been flung around as a insult?
Right, not in that context. I personally, I mean, why would I? But I personally haven't heard it in that context. I've heard and used it in the context of, oh shit, man, that was savage, but not as you are savage. That's different.
Yeah, it's like some sort of act was savage. And something we're going to do with all of our words is we're going to look at where the word came from. And this word, well, let's see Severo. There he is. Say hello, Severo. So what we're going to do is we want to look at all three words and where they came from. And obviously we just talked about what I'm sure, Dracoy, I think, hit the nail on the head as to why these are problematic words. But, the word originally came from the Latin to mean wild or of the woods, which is actually kind of cool. But
I think,
yeah. And then later in like French, Old French, and Middle English, it was wild or untamed. But obviously, over the years, the definition of words change. And I think it's, did you have something to add? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
continue, please.
I think that the definition of words over time change. But it seems like what they're arguing is that this word that 100 years ago was being flung as an insult, or even over 100 years ago, 19th century even, that that since it was used as a derogatory term then, we can never use it again. Because now, is it really used in that context? No, it's not. But I think what's hilarious, what's most funny about this is that they've used brutal as a substitute for savage. But when we look up the word brutal in the dictionary, the Webster's dictionary, savage is used as part of the definition.
They're interchangeable.
Oh Lord,
and feel free to disagree or agree with us in the comments below. But I think Matt and I are of the mind and opinion that we're trying to take back certain words and remove the negative connotations from them. And if you remove them from the books, claiming that they're going to offend everybody, then you're giving them more power than they're really worth. Yes. But that's going to bring us on to our next word, which is barbarian.
Barbarians. So yes, we have a clip. So let me run that out for you guys while Severo entertains you.
Barbarian.
We also see here this case about a barbarian horde, and it gets changed to an invading horde. In some cases, horde actually gets removed. We'll see below.
Okay. Before we go on, I want to mention the fact that he says that horde is even replaced in some places. So even horde might have some negative connotations.
Yeah, I don't get that at all. I really don't.
But anyway.
If we look at the origin of barbarian the same way we did savage, we will see that it first appeared in ancient Greece, and they used it as a derogatory term for anybody who wasn't Greek. You're talking about the Egyptians, the Romans, anyone that was not Greek was considered to be a barbarian. Okay, well, that's all right, but fast forward 2,000 years, what does it really mean today?
Yeah, so I personally believe that what it means today to be a barbarian was 100% shaped by, especially in the context of D&D, was 100% shaped by Robert E. Howard's Conan. I mean,
Right.
without question.
Yeah.
If you look at the original Gary Gygax Barbarian from the Dragon magazine to the Unearthed Arcana, all the way up through the editions to 5th edition, they're all fur loincloth wearing, great swords swinging, raging machines of death.
Yeah, they are.
And it's all about that sword and sorcery image. And it has nothing to do with a feeling of superiority that the Greeks held 2,500 years ago.
That's right. And the two ladies that are watching this video, they know what I'm talking about.
Yes, big muscles.
Yeah.
And, no shirts. Just absolute machismo, as they say, right?
But then if we're removing the word barbarian from the book, like what does that have to do? What's the implications that would have for the class?
Yeah, so that's what's something important is that the snippet he gives you, I went and found it, and I think that the total context of the sentence matters here. So from page 40 of the DMG, if you want to go look for yourself, dragons wheel above a barbarian horde, scattering enemies as the raging warriors cut a swath through field and forest. So raging warriors makes me think that they're talking about the class. And like you say, Dracoya, what are the implications then for the class? Are they going to change the name of the class?
Right, because when you're talking about, when I'm hearing this sentence, I don't hear, oh, it's a bunch of horrible, disgusting, lesser than me people. What I'm hearing is it's a barbaric horde. It's a terrifying horde that is coming my way. It's something that, is brutal. It's all the words that we're not allowed to say.
Yes. Our third word, civilization. And obviously this has already had some lip service before, but let's just see what Alpha Stream has to say about it. Let me share that, and then we'll talk about it. So here we go.
The monster manual has a bunch of other changes, and a lot of times the simplest approach to this kind of language is just remove the word. The word is often an additional thing carrying all of this problematic weight and isn't really needed. So they say dwarves and other civilized folk who might be friends or rivals. And here they change it to say dwarves and other folk who might be friends or rivals. You didn't actually need that word there, so you can often just prune it, and the meaning of it still works, right? You don't need to emphasize that dwarves are somehow civilized, right? What is civilizing? And it carries that larger connotation. Same thing here. They're talking about the races of goblinoids, saying almost as numerous. They just simply remove, but far more savage and brutal and almost uniformly evil. Just take that out, and if you need to address it, do so in specific ways for the individuals, the groups that you're talking about, rather than just painting with a broad picture like that. Here again, a removal. In this case, a swap, civilized for settled, and then violent instead of savage, and then just removing a piece about Quagos, where they're not always the brutal Underdark denizens there today. You can just remove that. It doesn't really add a lot. But you can see the kind of reading that the sensitivity and inclusivity team is doing and how they address these issues and what they pull out of here. The player's handbook as well talks about adventurers heading back to civilization to rest. Just call it their home base.
Home base. Let's go play some tag out in the yard.
Yeah.
And that pole over there is home base. Oh my God. I mean, home base does not belong in fantasy literature. It doesn't belong in a fantasy RPG.
It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't get it. Whatever. Feel free to comment and disagree below.
Yeah, so civilized, he used civilized earlier to mean urban or a city setting, but to my mind, civilization or being civilized, really it's the difference between being tamed, like the land has been tamed, versus being feral. You
Yeah,
know,
I can agree with that.
civilized folks aren't necessarily urban dwellers. You know, if I was wheeling around in my wheelchair in Naked and Afraid and I made it to like a farm, I would have said, I've made it back to civilization. This farm probably has a telephone. It probably, you know, there's probably no mountain lions prowling around.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Naked in my wheelchair. We're gonna
What a picture you display for us, Matt.
Yes, absolutely. So you know, it's really disconcerting to see how WotC has taken. They've looked at each and every word, and it's not. And honestly, WotC has hired sensitivity censors. You know, like as if there will ever be an end to this. Like words, the vanillification of our RPG, of this long-standing game with such a rich and profound history. You know, he keeps saying we don't need those words. We don't need those descriptions. Let's just keep removing adjectives until you have a Dick and Jane novel. You know?
Right. That's actually a really good way of putting it. It's taking all of that, how do I say, earthiness, that raw feeling out of this book, and that's what made it so wonderful. That's why it was wonderful. It was filled with joy and with sadness and grief and anger and the ability to overcome things and, you know, actually truly find true friendships and go through hell and back and finally accomplish the goal that you set out to achieve. It's that beautiful feeling. And what can you possibly do when you're taking out every single thing that might be upsetting to people? But that also, on the flip side, gives us those beautiful, deep, rich feelings.
Yeah, you know, when you remove things that upset people, it's like saying, well, we have to remove combat from D&D because the violence might upset somebody. And really, you know, you would think that violence would be much more upsetting than, say, the word civilization, you know.
You would think, and that might be on 2024's list for next year.
Yeah. Maybe we'll just be playing Sims, like building a house, going to work, coming back, making dinner. Sims.
Oh yeah. 6th grade me was all about that life.
Yes. And that 6th grade you stabbed me in the heart. I was like, I had kids playing The Sims. Holy smokes. Just a youngin'. So
well, you've got one more amazing clip that I know you want to show us so we can wrap up.
Yeah, this whole thing feels like like the first chapter, they like the prequel to George Orwell's 1984, because it is a slippery slope. I think Decoya said it perfectly. The censoring of words will never end. And I do have one more short clip that I want to share with you, and it is from 1984. So let me just share
book,
this.
by the way, if you haven't read it, you definitely should.
Yes, especially in this day and age.
Oh yeah. Oh.
So here we go.
You ever seen the picture of television against me? That there. The 11th edition will be that there. Well, the revolution will be complete when the language is perfect.
So yeah, the 10th edition was this thick, but eventually it's going to be this thick. The allowed words, right? The allowed words. Oh.
You know, and I know that the argument will also boil down to everyone's worldview. And there are those who say that language can be violent, and others that believe that it is a freedom of speech and it is our most sacred right.
Yeah, and those two groups, they'll never come together.
Probably not.
There's no compromise between those two. You know, and this has got to be why WotC. This has got to be why WotC made all these changes in secret, because they know that they're likely to make a lot more people angry than they are to make this small minority of people who are offended by the word civilization angry.
Right. You know, and I have to say again, taking away words gives them power. And the thing that is so beautiful about living in the era and the time that we live in is that everyone can have different opinions. Feel free to comment and give me some different opinions below. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're right. Go off and live your life however you want to live. Be whoever you want to be. And that's the beauty of this time period. And to take away these words are to give them power that they probably didn't have before. And I think that, you know, Matt and I are of the mindset where we shouldn't take these words away. And we need to take back these negative connotations and make sure that we use these words so much that it doesn't have the meaning that it once had. And cancel culture is making it so hard to have any kind of varying opinion at all. And there's no way that this RPG game there's no way to make an RPG game interesting and it won't offend somebody out there. And that's okay. Because guess what? There's a billion different groups and a billion different DMs. And if you don't like that one DM uses this word or uses this context or, you know, agrees with some race thing that's in there, then that's all right. Go find yourself a different group. Awesome.
Yeah, I think it boils down to, you know, I've heard for quite some time now that the control of language and words matters. You know, like you said earlier, like language can be violence, and there are people that believe that, and it's just not true. You know,
but it can be beautiful. Language can be beautiful.
Exactly.
Mentality doesn't have to always have a negative connotation. It can have a beautiful, natural connotation to it, depending on the context that you give it.
Yeah, and I think that there's so many people that have forgotten that what you say doesn't matter. Like if you're raising a child, if you say X, Y, or Z, but you don't follow through, it's your actions. Your actions are what matter. Actions are what are righteous and good. You know, taking these words away means nothing. You know, it only serves. Yeah, it's only a net negative to yield to the pressures to censor ourselves.
Right.
Because the bottom, obviously, you can tell what side of the paradigm I fall on. I'm not with the language is violence, folks. I'm sorry, but you know, you're right, Dracoya. It's all in our actions and how we treat one another that matters.
And you know, Matt, you had mentioned earlier, you know, a person's not going to open up the core books and then suddenly become a racist because they read the word savage and civilization in a book. If they're going to be like that, they were probably already like that to begin with, and they were probably already pieces of shit to begin with. The books didn't make them pieces of shit.
Yes, there's nothing that they've removed from these books that it pushes someone over the cliff of extremism, right? It's beyond heartbreaking to me to see this done, but
yeah, at some point you just got to say enough is enough, and I've done what I can, and hopefully, you know, you have people around you that see that. And guys, at the end of the day, just be good, just be nice, nice, don't hit people, don't call names, and go live your freaking life.
Yes. You know, and we like we said, we're splitting this topic up into a number of different videos because there's a lot more to unpack. This is just the tip of an iceberg. I think the next video to me is one that really stabs me in the heart. And I really hope that you guys tune in for that one, because to me, I know this is just a game. I know that RPGs are a game. We shouldn't be bent out of shape over words and such. But the next video, look for it in about a week. It will be to me very personal. So,
comment, like, subscribe. Tell us what flavor of alcohol you prefer, and tell us about your interpretation of these words. Tell us what you think. Are there words in your group that you don't allow, or the things you do not allow? And if so, that's okay. Tell us what they are and tell us why. Until next time, come back and have another round on us.